Welcome back to Empowerment Radio. Today we are talking about your questions on fear and anxiety, and one of the questions that several people send in was about mind racing, because it's not really nice, right? When your mind is just feeling out of control, just when you want to lay down and sleep, all of a sudden it just turns and turns and turns and turns. And how do you get out of that? Well, the truth is, mind racing is not only happening when you are hitting the pillow. Mind racing is happening pretty much all the time. You're just distracting yourself away from it. You're not paying attention to it. And so, what's really important is that you are not just trying to stop mind racing at night. You're actually trying to help your mind to get out of this race during the day. And there are three reasons why your mind may be racing. One is that you may have just too much on your plate. And that, since the mind, especially, the subconscious, gets really nervous when we are having to juggle more than 6 or 7 different items. Just like, the plate spinner, it tries to go from one to the next item to make sure nothing crashes and burns, especially if we haven't really gone into an overview state where we looked at each item and try to write it down or see exactly, okay, this is here and this is when I do it and I won't forget it. So the easiest thing to do is just to write things down, not just in a to-do list, but really in a map, in a mind map where you would say like, okay, here is the problem or my goal or my agenda that I was spinning around. This is where I want to be on the opposite side. And now what are the steps in between? And you just draw this on a piece of paper and you literally have an arrow from one to the next, and then all these steps in between, maybe even with sub steps or dates when you want to do it. Now, it looks not only great, it feels great to your mind, because your mind, and again, the subconscious is here at play when it comes to anxiety and mind racing, says, oh, it's got it covered. Apparently knows what he or she is doing. That's awesome. So it lets go of trying to worry about it. And it sees that there is actually a plan, a map to get from A to Z. So that's a really effective way to get out of the mind racing when there's too much on your plate. Sometimes you may have just to also take things off your plate and say, okay, I'm too ambitious, especially right before the holidays, and I need to tone down my expectations. Now, the second reason for the mind racing can be that your mind is just too stimulated. And we are all guilty of that. We all really treat our mind just like, as a container that can be filled endlessly. One of those magical Hogwarts things that you can just put more and more in and never really have to worry about that it gets cramped. Well, the mind gets also cluttered. And there may be too much stuff in there. And unfortunately, what we do when we feel already a little on the edge, or that our mind is a little nervous, that we are distracting ourselves. We go to social media. We are worrying a little bit about the fear of missing out something over there, or we are watching some TV that again stimulates us, or the internet, or whatever it is. We are not emptying the already full mind. We are actually just filling it up more. And to do that, to empty your mind, you have to be comfortable with nothing. I mean, nothing seems scary for many, and that has to do also with this not wanting to be present with self, but just sitting and maybe having just nature sounds on, or very, very calming music, and maybe just looking at the wall or at a plant or out of the window, and not getting into this overdrive of stimulation. It doesn't have to even be like a formal meditation. It can just be a little lollygagging and doing nothing. And that in itself is calming your mind and automatically releasing that pressure it has so much, inside, because like a pressure cooker, it was just too full. And the third reason for mind racing is negative thinking. And negative thinking can be about yourself, where you're very judgmental, But it can be also this worrying and this what if thinking. And there is a whole, show we need to do about this at some point. But it's really about this idea that when the mind is giving you a negative thought, rather than batting it away or maybe ignoring it or buying into it, try to understand that this negative thought is like a question from the subconscious trying to get an answer. The am I gonna be okay? Will tomorrow, some of my loved ones catch coronavirus? Is the stock market gonna crash and burn at the end of the year? Or will Trump actually leave the White House? Or whatever those worry questions were that may have been racing in your mind. Well, who is answering them? That is always a question. Are you actually saying, well, maybe I should make a decision and give an answer and make that mind feel better? Well, usually we don't do this. We only see the questions just like from this childlike perspective. Oh yeah, you're right, that's scary. And oh, whoa, I haven't thought about that, but that doesn't sound good. Step into the adult pants and really imagine that there is a little part inside of you that just wants someone to get answers from. And the answers may not necessarily, be something that's in your control, but you can always say, even if this would happen, we're still going to find a way to deal with this. We always have been okay. And just this calming, compassionate voice. I tell you, since I have been teaching this to my clients, usually within 1 or 2 weeks, when you just do this a few times a day, calmly redirecting, reassuring, a little anxious voice, imagining it's a question, you give the answer, you're going to have 70 to 80% less mind racing within that short amount of time. So try it out. It's really wonderful to start communicating with your anxiety and not just trying to run away from it. Now, another question that came up was about when I stay present, all fear disappears. How can I stay present? I think that's a really good question, and it's true. When we are present, usually the fear or the anxiety happens in the future, or when we are somehow looking in the past and we're worrying about something we did or something someone did. And so in the present moment, usually we have to admit there is really nothing to be so worried about. Right now, we are okay. But how can we be more present? And as I just mentioned before, one of the things that we really have to face is when we are present, ourselves. And so many people are just uncomfortable with facing themselves. They don't want to be alone. They don't want to feel themselves. And it's almost like that, you don't want to be at home with yourself. And of course, that creates only more anxiety, this discomfort. So being present, try to be present first and foremost with your sensations. Just try to see whatever it is that you see. I love seeing my mirror image. Just looking at the mirror. We don't really do this very long. And when we do it, we only do it to, brush hair, brush teeth, and squeeze out a pimple. And that's pretty much it. And so I would like you just to stay in front of the mirror a little bit longer and look at you kindly. Like, oh, I'm curious. And maybe even having your compassionate heart a little bit open for that, and look into your eyes and look at your body and really appreciate how your body has been serving you, and just be present as if you are present with a friend. At the beginning, it may feel like a stranger, but it's a friend. So you see yourself and you can say something that means like you are actually hearing that sensation. You can touch yourself. You can taste something in your mouth. You can smell something. All of those things get you into the present moment. And the same thing as being comfortable with being present with yourself, it's also comfortable being present with your life. Because so many people just feel like, I don't like my apartment, I don't like where I'm living, I don't like this, I don't like that. And so there is a lot of judgment. And again, there is the escape happening into another world, into a virtual reality rather than staying present. So get out of this judgment and just look. Maybe you can find things in your immediate environment that you're grateful for. Maybe your cat or a nice little plant that you have, or maybe there's one tree in your neighborhood that you actually somehow like because it's a one plant that still is resisting all this, all these buildings and streets that surround it. Whatever it is, just watch it and have a little admiration or gratitude for it. And again, be present. Doesn't have to be something like mindfulness. I mean, it's a form of mindfulness, but it's more like a form that you can do all the time, anytime, and you don't have to have the expectation that you should be present 24/7 because I don't know that this is something that you can be able to reach right away. I don't even know that anyone can, but I would like you just to try maybe every hour to be present for a minute and just practice these sensation anchorings of being present, and then just expand and expand. And at the end of the day, maybe you have another minute or two to really be present, and that will get you into the habit. Cool. Another question that came up, which I already talked about, is there an upside to anxiety? Yes, there are many upsides, and anxiety has been certainly my biggest teacher personally, and I would also say my biggest catalyst for growth. Because if I would not have had panic attacks when I was in cardiology, I probably would not sit here right now talk with you about anxiety, and I would have not really found my calling. I would just do what I have been doing, living in this, well-trodden path of my parents being doctors, so I had to be a doctor too, and then just being in this autopilot mode that so many of us find themselves in. You study something for a long time, or you have been doing something for a long time, so you don't even think about if it's right for you or not. Well, my anxiety woke me up and said, no, this is not right. You have to realign with your path and your values. And that's what I see over and over again with my clients. It's truly transformational when you are responding to the call of anxiety and see it as something that wants you to, first of all, look at whatever inside of you is still wounded and needs to be healed. But it also wants you to find yourself, to discover who you really are, and discover what is actually really your contribution, your mission, your purpose in this life. And anxiety is knocking at that door until you're actually opening it and you're realizing, yeah, this is time for me to maybe do a course correction, like in my case, or for many it's something about getting more in touch with appreciating themselves, accepting who they are, discovering that there's so much untapped potential inside of them, and then also opening the heart again. I mean, I don't know how many people told me that after they had really worked through the anxiety and realized that the anxiety had this deeper meaning, they had so much more love and compassion, not only for the people in their lives immediately, like their loved ones, but for everyone. It's almost like their whole perception on life had changed and they lived much more heart-centered than ever before. So yes, there is a big upside and a big possibility to use anxiety as a guide that leads you to your better, and in many ways also much more empowered self. We'll be right back after this break and talk about panic attacks and one of those really interesting fears that has been so predominant for a lot of people that have been connecting to me through my YouTube channel, which is the fear of getting old when you're just a teenager. What is that about, and how can we overcome that? Be right back. Hi, Dr. Friedemann here. Thank you for tuning into my YouTube channel. If you're interested in learning more about fear and anxiety, Here you'll find guided meditations, webinars, and interviews with some of the most renowned experts in the field of empowerment. Delve into the over 230 videos and more to come every week.